you can see here. As you can see here, we are going to be reviewing math section 1, which is the no calculator problems. And Marcelo and I, when we were grading a lot of these practice SAT exam, we noticed that this is the one that a lot of people were struggling on. So we have lots of tips and tricks to share with you guys so that you guys know like how exactly to navigate. Well, no, I take it back. You guys were okay with the no calculator section. It's a little rougher with the calculator section, which I totally get. My calculator section was rough. But regardless, we're going to be teaching you guys some tips and tricks on like how to master the math section. And as always, we'll be going over some practice problems at the end.
Yep. I think we should wait like 1 or 2 more minutes to see if anyone else joins, and then we can get started. I guess we can start now since no one else seemed to join. Right, so as you can see on the slide, we are going over the SAT math no calculator section. So what is the SAT math section? So the SAT math section will be 80 minutes and we'll have 58 questions, 45 of which are multiple choice. And we'll have 4 answer choices and 13 are grid in, meaning you write down the number you think is the correct answer. There are 2 section passages total, calculator portion, which we won't be going over today, which is 38 questions, and the no calculator portion, which is 20 questions in 25 minutes. There are 4 types of questions: heart of algebra, problem solving and data analysis, passport to advanced math, and additional topics in math. And when we did the mock test, we made sure to include what subjects you were the weakest on, so you can focus on those when you study and also during here. So the testing format. 80% of the questions are multiple choice, meaning there's only one correct answer, but there's no penalty for selecting an incorrect answer. So you must try and answer every question because you do have a 25% chance of getting a question right, even if you don't know the answer. 20% are graded responses, meaning student produced response questions. So your answer will either be, a fraction, decimal, or a positive integer. And there are also no penalties for answering incorrectly. So take advantage of that. And even if you're not sure if your answer is correct, don't leave them blank because maybe that answer you have is the correct answer. And since there's no penalty, it is worth it to just write down an answer. And here are the 3 math subscores. The last one, which was additional topics, is just additional topics to math. So there doesn't need to be an explanation for those. But for these 3, these are the ones we did email you if you took the mock test during our first session. And the first one being problem solving and data analysis. So this is when you're using your math understanding and skills to solve problems set in the real world, meaning word problems. The questions ask you to create a representation of a problem, consider the units involved, pay attention to the meaning of quantities, know and use different properties of mathematical operations and representations, and apply key principles of statistics. So this includes word problems and looking at graphs and data and making sure you can understand those. Second of all is heart of algebra, which is going to focus on the mastery of linear equations, systems of linear equations, and linear functions. So the bulk of it, heart of algebra, do you know your algebra? And finally, we have Passport to Advanced Math. These include topics that are especially important for students to master before studying advanced math. So that doesn't mean you're going to be tested on calculus per se, but maybe algebra 2. Among these topics is the understanding of the structure of expressions and the ability to analyze, manipulate, and rewrite these expressions. These questions also include reasoning with more complex equations and interpreting and building functions. So don't expect to do calculus on the SAT. That's too far ahead. And because you're being like everyone is being tested, no one can be sure if everyone's learning calculus at the same time. So don't worry about too much about Passport to Advanced Math. It's more like polynomials it's speaking of. So, and here we have the formulas. So in the math section for the SAT, you will always have this exact formula sheet at the beginning of both the math no calculator and math with calculator. You will be given the area for basic shapes, including some special right triangles seen at the top right, and the volume. That means that there will be area problems and that there will be volume problems. That doesn't mean you have to see them, but you might encounter them. And at the bottom is some important information about the degrees of an arc in a circle, the radians of an arc in a circle, and the sum of measures and degrees of an angle of a triangle is 180. It doesn't give you for a square, but for a triangle. So keep that in mind that you will have this information in case you just blank out on the test, but it's information you should already be really familiar with and should be able to reproduce without looking back at this formula when a question asks for, let's say, the volume of a sphere. So today we're going to be going over some testing tactics. So here is essentially an outline of what we're going to be going over today. And there are 10 main testing tactics, which I won't be saying them because I feel like it's redundant because the slides themselves have the name. So here are the 10 things. If you're not familiar with some of these, maybe you're not sure what plug and chug is, don't worry. We're going to be going over each of them through extensively. So you can make sure you grasp these tactics. So the ones that are the most helpful to you, you can take advantage of and use them. Remembering that for the SAT, you don't have to use all of these. They might not work out for you, but what matters is you learn about them and see that if they are applicable for you, if they are useful to you, to take advantage of them. So the first one is drawing diagrams. So you don't limit yourself to only drawing diagrams for geometry questions. And you don't need to be an artist. A few line segments should suffice. So here's an example question. What is the area of a rectangle whose length is twice its width and whose perimeter is equal to that of a square whose area is 1? You don't have to do this, but answer the question. But would anyone be able to say how they would start drawing a diagram for this question in particular? If you don't have any idea, we can just go ahead and show you what it would be.
Yeah, well, maybe I would just draw a square and a rectangle and start assigning values.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly how you would start. You first start out with drawing your little square and rectangle and assigning values to them, just like that. The first one would be you have the perimeter is equal to that of a square whose area is 1. So you know a square has equal lengths. You would draw square 1, 1, 1, meaning the perimeter is 4. Same thing goes for the rectangle, whose length is twice its width. So you have width being W. The length is 2 times that, 2W. Then you have the perimeter of P equals 6W. And once you have these drawn out, it'll become much more simple to visualize the question and be able to answer what the question is asking for, which is the area of the rectangle. So, next up is assume diagrams are to scale. Every diagram on the SAT will be drawn as accurately as possible, aka to scale, unless noted. This means that you should use this to your advantage. Unless the graph specifically says not drawn to scale, you can assume it's drawn to scale. So here's an example question. In the figure below, what is the value of X? And you have this quadrilateral, because it's 4 sides, it's just right to 4, yeah, 4 sides. It's just drawn very weirdly. And you have to figure out what X is. You know one angle and you know the 2, which are right angles. From here, what you can do for example, is you can draw right here and assume that if this is a right angle on the bottom, then the one that is right on top would also be 90 degrees. From there, you can figure out another triangle, the top, which is 90 degrees, and then you have 50 degrees. So just because there is not a line drawn there, and that doesn't mean you can't draw the line. If you can draw a line to make it more visual and better for you to understand what the graph looks like, then you should go ahead and do it. But keep in mind that if the diagram says it's not to scale, this information is completely void. The only reason why it works out here in this particular question is because we know that the diagram is to scale. So the second one is redrawing diagram. So what I talked about, if not drawn to scale, then you can assume absolutely nothing. So when it is not to scale, you would want to redraw the diagram to ensure that there is clarity. So here's an example on the right. It says if triangle XYZ at the right, in triangle XYZ at the right, if line segment XY is less than line segment YZ that's less than line segment ZX, then which of the following must be true? And the drawing is an equilateral triangle, but the information you're given in the question is that none of the line segments are equal. So this is purposely drawn in a way where you assume, oh, equilateral triangle, it must be 60 degrees, which is false. So what you can do to make this question a bit better than what you're given is to draw like the triangle at the bottom, where you can see that the line segments are drawn more to scale and you can understand the question better. So you can see that clearly, Y would be the biggest angle, while Z seems to be possibly the smallest angle. And it clarifies the question. On to the next. Another thing you can do with the diagrams is to add lines to diagrams, which is what we kind of saw previously, but not necessarily. This is just limiting it. So you're adding lines to diagrams. If you feel that there's not information on the diagram, don't be afraid to add lines, keeping in mind the drawing will be to scale unless otherwise noted once again. So here on the question to the right, we have a nice geometry question with a circle and a rectangle inscribed of the circle. And it says on the figure to the right, Q is a point on the circle whose center O and whose radius is R. And OPQR is a rectangle. What is the length of the diagonal PR? And you're not really given much information aside from that. However, if you notice, you have the point O all the way to the circle makes the radius. And that's the information given. And if you draw a line segment from O to Q, oh no, one second. There we go. O to Q, you can see that it looks like it's about the same length as the radius. It looks like the same length because it is the same length. So instead of going through all of the work of trying to figure out what is the length of the diagonal, you can simply say, oh, it looks like it's the radius. I know that this figure is drawn to scale, so that must mean OQ is the radius, so the answer would be A. So it saves you from doing all the hard work if you can realize that the diagram is to scale, and you can figure out that they're the same length just by looking at it. Again, this will not work if the diagram says it is not to scale. This will only work if the diagram says it's not to scale. I mean, it says it is to scale. Next one, plug and chug, which Alexis will be going over.
Yes. So this was my always go-to method during the SAT, especially when I was confused about a question about like what the first step would even be. So we have this example, like if you're lost in the correct answer, sometimes like plugging the answer choices in is quicker than like trying to figure out the problem. So for example, like this one's kind of a simplistic one, like it's realistic that you could be able to just like solve it and find the answer. But if you're like pressed for time, or you're like, you just can't figure it out, or like you forget how like division works with algebra, you can literally just plug in all the answer choices and see which one gets you the right answer. So as you see here, like I did the steps, like if you plug in 2, you get 1/3. If you plug in 4, you get 1. You plug in 9, you get 3/8. So when you plug in 10, you actually get 3, which is what K is equal to. So don't be afraid to like plug in like it's not cheating to plug in the answer to try to see which one gets you the correct one. So I highly recommend that one. It saved my life so many times.
Yeah, definitely Plug and Chug. One of our favorites, a classic. You can always rely on her. So next one, trial and error. So I guess this is similar, but this time it's replace the end of each variable with an easy to use number. And then you're going to solve the problem using those numbers. And you will evaluate each of the 4 choices with the numbers you picked to see which choice is equal to the answer you obtained. So here's an example on the right. If a school cafeteria needs C cans of soup each week for each student, and if there are S students in the school, for how many weeks will X cans of school soup last? There's purposely no numbers given in this problem. It is a complete word problem, but the answers are going to be, nice little fractions that are full of letters, and it might be like, whoa, how did you get there? So the first thing you want to do is put in really easy numbers. You don't want to overcomplicate yourself. So for example, C equals 2, S equals 5, and you are solving for X. So pretty simple. You have 2 cans of soup each week, and there are 5 students in the school. This is a very small school, but that is okay. It is just an example. So if you know that per week, it's going to be the amount of cans per student times the number of students, it's going to be 10 cans per week, which you're going to plug in, and you have to figure out which of the choices equals 2 when the cans of soup is equal to the number of students equals 5, and X is equal to 20. So you plug that in and you would get this, which is 20 over 2 times 5, which then you go back and put in the letters instead of the numbers. So you would get X is X over C times S, which would be answer choice D. That was a bit confusing. I understand if anyone has questions on this. If not, we can move on. Just looking at it, do you see how the trial and error works in this case? I see some head nods. So I'm going to move on to the next one. But yeah, trial and error, replacing variables with numbers that are easy to use. Keep in mind, you're going to complicate your life if you use numbers like 12 and 27 because you're smart and you know how to multiply. You're wasting more time on an SAT when you only have about a minute to respond per question. So 2 and 5 is going to work exactly the same like 12 and 27. Choosing an appropriate number. Again, when no variable is given in the problem, especially useful in problems involving fractions, ratios, and percents. So what this means is, I'll just explain with the question on the right. From 2012 to 2013, the sales of a book decreased by 80%. If the sales in 2014 were the same as in 2012, by what percent did the sales increase by 2013 to 2014? So again, you're given a bunch of dates, you're given one percentage, and then you're told to figure another percent. These questions really tripped me up when I was studying for the ACT, but still, for the exam. So here's how I would have gone about it. So the first one is you're going to assume 100 copies were sold. And when you're working with percent problems, this one's actually going to be the easy number, just because you know that 100%, 100, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So that means sales dropped by 80, aka 80% of 100, simple, 80 to 20 in 2013. Then increased again by 80, okay, from 20 back to 100 in 2014, right? So it decreased by 80 to 20, but then it went back up in 2014 as they were in 2012, so back to 100. So you have actual increase over original amount times 100 equals 80 over 20 times 100%, which gives you 400%, and the answer choice is C. So again, you could try to use, maybe 10 if you want. That would also work in this case. Maybe 50, but again, if you use a number like 28, you are only complicating your life further when you can use a number that you can easily find with percentage like 100, or in this case, 10 would also work out. All right. The next one is eliminating absurd answers. If you have no idea where to start, eliminate what is obviously wrong. So kind of process of elimination. Figure out patterns in answers, even if you don't know how to solve the problem. For example, if you know the answer must be positive, some of the answers might be negative. Those are going to be immediately wrong. If you know that the answer must be even, but some of the answers are odd, choices are odd. The answer must be less than 100, but some of the choices will exceed 100. Or a ratio must be less than 1, but some of the choices are greater than or equal to 1. So if you don't know what the answer is, you might be able to tell, oh, I definitely know this has to be less than 1. And if some of the answer choices are more than 1, you can automatically take those out and focus on the other. So here is an example. If 25% of 220 equals 5.5% of W, what is W? And you're given 4 answer choices, which first of all, you have A, which is 55, and D, which is 1,000. So there's already a big jump between those two. So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to write down, the 5% in decimal. You don't have to do this, but again, for me, this would work. So then you have it in decimal, which is 0.055 W equals 0.25 times 220. So then you know that if you would multiply it by, if you would just get 1 W, you already know that that W is more than 1/4 of 220. So W has to be bigger than 220. And if you have that, you know that that W itself is greater than 220. You're only left with one answer choice because only one of them is above 220, which is 1,000. So your answer choice would be D. So you have to use those fractions, those decimals to your advantage to figure out that W is a big number. And in general, that's how you would eliminate absurd answers, just to use the question to your advantage, even if you don't know how to genuinely solve for it. Right, next one, subtract to find shaded region. So if you're going to have a nice little rectangle and that's going to have, some circles, arcs of the circles in them, you want to know how to do it quicker, which would be subtract to find the shaded region. So the first way of doing it is area of the entire figure versus minus, the area of the white region, which will give you the area of the shaded region. On the flip side, if you want to find the area of the white region, you need the total area of the figure minus the area of the shaded region. However, for this one, if you find just the area, if you need the area of the white region, you just simply find, the area of the arcs of the circle, since you know the radius would be 2. So here you need the area of the shaded region. So we're going to be using the first formula. And what you would do is you find the area of the rectangle first, which you know is going to be 10, since you're given the lengths 2 and 5. And then you're going to recognize those 2 arcs would make a half circle with a radius of 2. So you have the area of a circle. If you don't remember the area of circle, congrats, you have a formula at the beginning you can look back to. But if you remember the area of a circle, you plug that in with 2 to get 2 pi. Then you have 10 minus 2 pi, which you can expand to 2 times 5 minus pi, and your answer choice would be D. Not D, it's C. I typed that in wrong. It's not even C, it's B. I apologize. The answer choice is right at the bottom. I just can't type, apparently. I apologize for that one. That is my fault. But yeah, you just also need to expand it. Notice how you might get 10 minus 2 pi, but none of the answer choices are 10 minus 2 pi. You might say, oh, it's A. I just got 2 pi wrong. Sometimes you just need to expand the problem, as seen in this question. The next one.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to point it to you, so you're fine.
So the next one is don't overcomplicate your question. Sometimes just trust your gut. I'm going to give you guys 15 seconds to get the correct answer for this one. Okay, 15 seconds have passed. I did a little Jeopardy music in my head. Can anyone tell me what the right answer for this one is? here's a hint, literally you can just look at the question mark part of the question, look at the formula and get the correct answer. Yep, the correct answer is in fact A, which is 3. Like sometimes, because like I know when I saw this question, because I was like looking through the math SAT person, and at first, like anytime I see a formula, I immediately want to like, okay, what am I plugging in? What am I having to, but literally like look at the formula and based on the model, what's the estimated increase in inches of a boy's height each year? And if you understand like basic algebra, you know that when they're giving you a question like this, usually the number that's in front of the variable, which like if you're like doing a graph would be the slope. Usually that's, sorry if you guys can hear the thunder, it's raining really hard over here. But usually like the number in front of a variable, that's gonna be the value of change. So like literally like that quick, you can, that was a really sad snap. There we go, that quick, you can get the right answer and you can move on. So things like that, like if you can figure out like quick ways to answer the question, then you have so much time that you can then use on like harder questions where you have to draw a diagram or you have to like plug things in. So sometimes just like trust your gut. The SAT is hot, like the SAT is purposely confusing. So if you find an answer that you're like, whoa, I actually know this, like don't question it. Just like be like, thanks SAT and move on.
Exactly. It gives you all of those sentences. And for what? For what? Great. Next one. Some questions are easier than written, which is kind of like the previous one, but this one's more algebraic. So if you have the expression, if 5 times 3x minus 7 equals 20, what is 3x minus 8? So this one seems like, you know, what that's a lot of math and you only have like a minute to do it. Don't you worry, I will have a method for you. This might not work for everyone, but this one is just to recognize how to simplify questions. The more you do questions like these, the easier it will get to really like point out, oh, 3x minus 7 is really close to 3x minus 8. There must be an easy way to do this problem, because the chances are if it's an SAT question, there will always be an easier way to do the problem. They just don't want to tell you how. And that is the SAT math section in a nutshell. So solving for x may take too long and produce a mixed number as well, which I hate mixed numbers. Why do they exist? I don't know. Instead, notice how 3x minus 7 is really close to 3x minus 8, which I pointed out. So what you're going to do is you're just going to isolate that expression. 3x minus 7 equals 4. You're dividing by 5 on both sides. Again, you go through that process to get from negative minus 7 to minus 8. You need another minus 1. So then minus 1 to both sides. And there you have your answer. 3x minus 8 equals 3. You never had to solve for x, actually. All you did was see how those two are similar and get to 3x minus 8. You could have, again, solved for x. That is not incorrect. And you prefer to do that. That is also a way to do it. But this is faster. If you recognize it, it might be better for you on the SAT, especially with this problem because it is a pretty simple algebraic expression. Oh no, those are practice questions. We're not doing those yet. So do we have any questions or comments about the testing tactics? Let me go to the slide actually. This might take me a little, about all 10 of them. And if we have any questions on any of them before we take a break, because we will be taking a break before we go on to our favorite part, practice questions. So does anyone have any questions about any of these testing tactics we went over?
Yeah, about the formulas. So they give us those formulas. So do we have to memorize the weird formulas like the area under a parabola or something like that, or not really?
For the most part, I know for me, because like I took the SAT math a couple times because that was my worst suit. For the most part, any question that are like, they won't usually ask you formulas that aren't provided or that you can't like elaborate. Because like I know for me, like things like perimeter and stuff, like they don't have on here, but all the formulas they give you, you can kind of like build off into other ones. So realistically, they're not going to ask you the area for a parabola because it's not on the formula. like it's not like usually because that's another because parabolas and things like that go into higher levels of math. So usually you'll only get a couple questions of those anyways as a part of like the ticket to advanced math portion. So realistically, I wouldn't memorize anything more than I like would be required of me because you're realistically can only get a couple questions on those.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions, either on the formula sheet or maybe on the testing tactics? Where did my thing go? There it is. If not, we will take a 5-minute-ish break. We will come back to our practice problems. All right. See y'all at 2:40.
See you.
Hopefully y'all can see my iPad, right? You can see just practice questions, moving it up and down. Great, yeah. So I'm doing this just because in case we have problems with the questions, we can go over how to do them exactly. And if not, we can just go over it. So it's not like you have to do a bunch of questions each time. However, we will still be timing, which I think I'm not mistaken. I think you have about a minute per question. Alexis, I think I might be wrong.
I thought it was a minute 10, but I'm
A
gonna
minute.
check it.
Yes, it should say in the speaker notes. However, because I am on Good Notes, I am no longer able to see the speaker notes. Oh, okay. Don't want to move. But, yeah, a minute and 10 seconds sounds about right. And it should be how much time you actually have on the SAT, which we're trying to mimic as much as we can. So for the first question, these questions are taken from the SAT Student Guide 2021, which you can easily just look up SAT Student Guide and it'll pop up and you can see these questions with more explanation. And from the SAT Practice Test 9, which is also on the SAT website. And if you want to do these questions again, you can look it up. And not only will you get the practice exam, but you'll get the answers, explanation to the answers, and the entire test so you can score it yourselves. I don't scroll on there. This one's going to be weird to manage. All right, so here is your first question. And again, I will give y'all 1 minute and 10 seconds to work on this question. And that was time. So what did we get for this first question? What is the slope of the new line? If you could type that in the chat. Right, I got a B. So just one person responding, but it is B as her answer choice, and it is B is the correct answer choice. So here's another question in which the SAT kind of wants to trick you again. It says if line L is translated up 5 units and right 7 units, what is the slope of the new line? Here's the thing though, if you're just translating a line up and down, left to right, the slope does not change whatsoever. You're just moving where the line is. The intercept could change for both the y and the x, but the slope itself will not change. So really you just have to look at the line and just kind of count, 1, 2, 3, wait, 1, 2, 3, which is gonna be, it's gonna be the rise of the rise. It's gonna be 3. And then, it's gonna be 1 and 2, as you can see down here.
It's the rise.
It's the rise. It's been so long that I know how to explain it, but proper terms completely blanked out. The run will be 2. So if you have 3 over 2, but it's going down, then your only answer choice left would be -3 over 2. Very simple. It just wants to confuse you with a sentence about translating when it doesn't affect the slope whatsoever. Next question we have, this one. Again, you will have 1 minute and 10 seconds to try to complete this. And your time begins now. Nice job to those who answered before the time was up. That's good. But yeah, time was up right when I said that. So we're getting some answers and we are all getting D, which good job, guys. The answer is D, just simple. You look at the expression, which is that's the slope. So you choose the answer choice that best describes what slope is, which is D. Next question, getting a little bit more tricky. Oh, and your time has started. Okay, time is up. So what did you get for this answer choice? For this question. Again, it's okay if you didn't finish the question, just because as we saw in the previous one, that one took you less than 1:10. So then you would like have time over for this question to take longer than that. But for the sake of how much theoretical time do you get per question, that's why I only gave you 1:10. So theoretically, that's how much time you get per question. On the actual exam, you might speed through the first 10 and then take longer on the last 10. I don't know if you can hear my parents in the background arguing. I apologize if you can. Okay, good. They're not really arguing, but they do tend to speak a little loud. Okay, I got 2 answer choices, which C. And that is the correct answer choice. C is correct. As you can see, you have something in specific in case this question would have tripped you up with the first answer choice, is that you have to make sure that the equation, the x and the y coordinates of the vertex of the parabola appear as constant or as coefficients. So what can trip you up in this question is A is technically correct. However, it's in the standard form, and that is not what it's asking you, meaning it's not correct. If you just look at the question and quickly try to, do FOIL method and get the answer choice, you might put it down as A, when in reality, as y'all got, and you didn't get tripped up, so good job. The answer choice is C, but you have that. So you have to remember what the question asks and not just what you think would be right. Okay, next one, number 4. Again, 1:10 for this question. Okay, and that was time. Officially, but again, type in the answer once you have your answer in the chat, and we got a D, 2 Ds actually. Looking at the timestamp, I can tell both of them are for this question. Sometimes that gets confusing because we'll answer the questions very quickly and then I'm like, oh no, is this one for the previous one or is it for this one? But this one, it's nice because it's 250 and 253. I am not confused today. We have currently 2 Ds. And anyone else? Okay, 1 more D. Okay. Well, assuming the other person. Oh, that is an emoji. Oh no, I thought that was another answer choice. You have tricked me. Yeah. So for this question, you just again FOIL it out. But something important to note and something that the question reminds you is that I, the imaginary number, is equal to the square root of -1. Therefore, if you have, oh, that is my highlighter. That's not going to be helpful. If you have I squared, that's going to equal -1. And if you FOIL it out, which you all did correctly, you are going to get -24i squared somewhere at the end when you FOIL it out, which, all that's going to be equal to is to +24 in your equation. But since most of you got it right, you didn't get tripped up over it. I'm just pointing it out to make sure you know some tricks the SAT might throw at you, because an SAT loves a good curveball. Moving on to the next question. Again, you have a minute and 10 seconds to solve. And time is up. Technically, you can still be working on the question if you need to. We got 2 C's. Another C. Yep. So all of y'all are correct. The answer choice is C. Wow. So this one is a more trigonometry, I guess. If you have sine, cosine, Sohcahtoa, trigonometry, not geometry. More than just geometry, because why not? Sohcahtoa. Yeah, so as you can see, you all got it right. I'm just gonna quickly explain maybe why or how, but the basis, sine and cosine are co-functions, so that means they're related to each other. So if you know that, yeah, sine x is gonna equal cosine x over 2 minus x, then you simply just plug it in and you would get the answer choice of C. If you did it another way, that's cool, but this one I feel like would be easiest, just plug it in. Right, moving on to our next question. As you can see, this one has no response to it, because this one would be, or no answer choices to it, because this one would be a free response. So this is a free response example. So again, you have 1 minute and 10 seconds to officially complete the question, but don't worry if you take longer than that. Time has started. All right, and that was time. So we have one answer currently, which is 24. You have no answer choices, so free response. Any other responses? To this question. Oh, that's okay if you think your question is wrong. If you think you have a different answer, you can put your other answer. But basing on the fact that no one else has put in an answer, I'm going to assume either we are stuck or not too sure about our answer. So for this one, the equation of a circle in the XY plane is shown above. What is the diameter of the circle? So the first thing you want to do is you are going to complete the square. So, which your end product of that would just be x minus 3 squared and then plus y. There we go. Squared. 169. So if you do the process of completing the square, you should get this, which completing the square would then be, to like move them. Putting them together, the terms together with the same variables, and then adding on to each side, which you would get down to here. And that was the hard part of completing the square and getting to this formula. This. From there, you can just see that you were looking for the diameter of the circle, and hopefully you can recognize that 169 is really all you need from this problem. You know that r squared is going to be equal 169 based on the equation of a circle. If you know that, then all you're going to do is you're going to find the square root of that, which is r, and that's going to be 13. So with your 24, you were close, but I feel like some calculations you might have, Jonathan, messed up, which is okay. There are a lot of calculations you do in this question. However, it's not asking for the radius, so 13 is wrong again. Diameter is just 2 radius, so your diameter would be 26. And that would be the correct answer choice. Again, 24, super close, but maybe you tripped up somewhere, but
I'm almost sure that he took 144 and take the square root out of it, and that so yeah, you should remember to get the square part.
Yeah, that does make sense because 12 times 2 is 24. There we go. Maybe was that your mistake, Jonathan?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know really what I did. It doesn't make sense, my procedure now.
Yeah. But keep in mind that the SAT is purposely giving you this equation up here to trip you up. So it's not going to tell you to rewrite the equation, but for the sake of what the question is asking, which is the diameter of the circle, it is better for you to rewrite the formula. I keep saying formula. Rewrite the equation so it is in a better term, which is this. Then you can figure out the question much more easily. Right. Moving on to number 3, which I think now we're moving on to the questions that come from the SAT practice test number 9. The ones from the previous were from the student guide, which again, you can look up and easily find if you want more information on these questions. And for this one, your time has started. So again, 1 minute and 10 seconds. All right. So what did we get for this answer choice? For this question? Or what was your answer choice?
I got letter D.
Ready?
D for dinosaur. Yeah.
D for dinosaur. See, I'm usually boring. I usually just say D for dog. Okay. D for diplodocus. What?
The only thing I could think of was dune buggy, so I don't know if that's any better than what anyone else's D suggestion was.
We have a fancy word that I'm not familiar with that Jonathan put in.
Diplodocus? I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's a dinosaur. I just remember.
Well, good for all of you though. D is the correct answer. It has a positive slope and a negative y-intercept. So good job. The easiest way to just figure this out is rewriting the equation. For a lot of these, it might just be rewriting equations when given an equation. And for this one, you do rewrite it. You should end up, what you should have gotten was this particular line. That was an ugly 3. I apologize. That's a really ugly 3. It's still a bit ugly, but it's better than before. I don't like the loop in my 3s. They creep me out. It's like clowns. I don't know. I don't know. I associate the loop-de-loop with clowns.
I've never seen a clown do math, so I guess I wouldn't know how they write their 3s.
I don't know. Just sorry, on a little tangent here because we do have time. Does this not just like remind you of clowns? Like I just immediately associate.
like the nose? Like, what do you mean?
I
The
don't.
side chair of a clown, right? Well, I kind of see it that way.
I can maybe see where you're coming from, but it's like not like it's not like my brain's not naturally like, yes, clown number. It is the number of the clown. Like maybe
Just,
it's the curly hair.
I think it's because like this. Sorry, I'm going way off point, but this is not a clown. That is just a regular 3. But this one right here, the one that's left, that one's clown. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, so you could have rewritten your equation like this. You didn't have to, but this is a way to look at it and much more easy. Quickly, you see positive slope, negative y-intercept, just like you all found. Good job, guys. All right, number 6. Again, 1 minute and 10 seconds to solve.
Well, just one quick question. Is the angle in degrees or in radians? I think it's degrees, right? Because of the little circle.
You're going to be solving in radians, I think.
Yeah, because remember when we have like number pi, we are talking about radians. So yeah. Okay, just to answer your question, the x is in degrees. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Time is technically up, but I'm going to give y'all another just because of the question in case that interrupted you. So just another minute to solve this question. Okay, that extra time was up. So what did y'all get for this question about the circle? If no answers, then I can just go over this question step by step. I would go about it. We got one answer choice being B. Else has an answer choice. I'll just start going ahead. This is what I love about good notes. I can just zoom in as much as I want. Okay, I'm gonna go with green just because it's already in black ink, so you can understand. Okay. So B is the correct answer choice, by the way, but I will be explaining how to get there as best as I can. So the first thing I would do is just label everything. I'm a label type of gal. So I would just, even if it is on the question, I would go towards the diagram and kind of just, do that. And then this is going to get confusing, but all of that would then be 5 pi. You don't have to do this part. This one's just what works for me, because then I don't have to look back and forth at the diagram and at the question. Completely optional, not necessary, personal preference. So the first thing you know is that in a circle, the measures of the angles is going to be 360. So if you know that this portion right here, x is 100, then you just have to figure out what this is. 360 minus 100, you're going to get 260 degrees. From there, if S is the length of arc ABC, then S, which is going to be this one, right? You just put it as S. S must satisfy a ratio, which is going to be S over 5 pi, which is then going to equal to the ratio of the degrees, which is 260 over 100. Can you still see this, right?
Yeah.
Cool. You can simplify down the fraction on the right from 2610 to 13 over 5. So then you have a nice, much more simple that you can solve for. Again, if you want to use 260 and 100 and multiply it out, go ahead. I'm not telling you that's wrong, but using easier numbers is easier and will lead you to trip up less. So then for here, you would just cross multiply, which I'm forgetting what 13 times 5 is. Very quickly. But because you then already have the 5 and the 5, divide your 5, you're back to 13. That's your answer choice. Or your answer, not answer. Yep. Does that process make sense to people who did not write down an answer choice? I apologize if my writing's a bit messy. It's harder to write on an iPad than it is on paper and pencil, I will say. So that's why my threes get messy and I think they look like clowns. You know, it's fine. It's the way of life. Yep. So for number 6, that was B, 13 pi. So if no one else has questions, we can move on to the next question.
Yeah, just one thing. So in this case, we equal the ratios of the lengths of the arcs and the angles, right? We equal those ratios for solving this, right? I don't know if I.
So, I mean, actually, if you see it in another way, she did what we call in Spanish regla de tres. I don't know if you know it like that, maybe. Do you see it like at the end? Yes, it's an equal part, but at the end, it's a regla de tres. So basically, like if this is this, how much would this be? I mean, like transforming. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think there's an English equivalent to that, or maybe there is, and I just forgot everything about. I don't think there is, because you said regla de tres, like 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like rule of 3. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I've never heard the term in English, so
Yeah,
that's why it's
I was
Spanish.
like making sure you said tres and not like something else, and I was like, did he just say 3? Did he just mock me in my 3s? But no, that seems to be an actual rule. And number 3 is just gonna haunt me forever. All right, moving on to the next question. Again, you have 1 minute and 10 seconds to solve. Okay, and that was time. We currently have 1 answer, which is C for question number 8. Any other guesses as to the answer?
I was trying to actually like do the problem along with this one. I'm like, no, I got this one. But I got so distracted trying to choose my pen in the beginning that I didn't get the chance to finish the problem. I guess it's a nice, pretty blue I chose and a nice like pen size, but like the problem was not finished.
Sometimes I get distracted on what color to use. I'm gonna change it. Speaking of, it's gonna be this nice, if that's okay with y'all, it's gonna be this nice purple.
Ooh, how did it say just purple? So I love that.
Mine's, okay, I don't know why. Oh, okay. And we got another C. That's exciting.
I'm also gonna put my answer choice that I got for my half-finished problem.
And Alexis got C. Did rising college sophomore Alexis Paredes get this SAT math question correct? And the answer is She did. And all of y'all else did. Good job, guys. Yeah, this one, I don't know. I feel like this one would be one that would like scare me because I'm just looking at a long equation. But simple, this is what you probably did. You just distribute the 3, distribute the 5, combine them, and then from there you have a much more easier problem to solve versus trying to figure out this. Yeah, you would end up with what? Okay, there goes my thing again. Minus 15. Now I understand my calculus teacher and his really bad handwriting. I understand him now. It all makes sense because my calculus teacher would also use an iPad. And I was like, why is his handwriting so bad? Yeah, I
had
get
a
him.
calc teacher and a stat teacher, and their handwriting was immaculate on an iPad, and I'll never understand how they did it. Because like neither of them used an Apple Pencil either. They just like do what they're. I was like, this has to be some type of black magic. Like I don't trust it.
Okay. Impressive. Yep. Hopefully you got that and then solved for C, which is the correct answer choice. Alrighty. Next one. Oh, it's another long equation one. Just giving you all my favorites right now. Then we got my handwriting is far worse and I write in paper. Oh, I mean, honestly, as I'm gonna go back to college this semester, it's gonna be so bad. It's gonna be terrible. Writing notes in class, it's gonna be the worst thing ever. So don't you worry. We are in this together in terms of bad handwriting. Okay. I'll let y'all solve this question now. And that was time for this question. However, you can keep working on it and just type in the answer once you get it. Ah, we got a C. Okay, anyone else? For 10, also C. So we have 2 C's. I was trying to find X for some unknown reason. That is all right, because when you look at this equation, you might say, you know what, let me solve for X. And, you know, the SAT will sometimes do that especially in lengthier word problems. It'll like have a paragraph and then you'll be solving for one thing, but it actually asks for another thing. So you always want to be careful in making sure you're solving for what the SAT is asking you. Still only 2 C's. Well, the good thing for y'all is that C is the correct answer choice. Yup. So based on E2 who got it right, hopefully what you did, again, you have another way of doing it, go ahead. But the first thing obviously is to expand it out. So you would have multiplied all of the terms together and gotten 5ax to the third minus abx squared plus 4ax plus 15x squared minus 3bx plus 12. And keeping the same thing on the right side because you don't really have to do anything. And from there, on the right side, you only have the x squared term of minus 9x squared. And since both of the equations are equal to one another and you're trying to solve for this guy right here, really, because you're trying to solve for AB, then you can just abx squared plus 15x squared equals 9x squared. Since they're all at the same degree, you can clump those up together and ignore everything else. From there, you can rewrite it. So you take out that x squared on the left. So you're left with something like this. And then this is where it gets really easy because now you can take out the x squared. So now you just have one. And now you can solve for negative AB, but then of course, you're not looking for negative AB, you're looking for positive AB, which is C24. Cool. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns? No. And on to the next one, number 9. Can you have a minute? But for this one, it's deceptively easy. Okay, now it's time. So for this one, we have 2 current answers, B and D. So if we look at the question itself, making sure we know what it's asking for, which is a system of 3 equations, and it's asking for the solution, meaning how many times do the 3 equations intercept all at once? And if you look at the graph, although there are 3 interceptions in total, you have this one for that. No, you have more. You also have here interceptions. Only one of these is actually intercepting all 3 of the equations, meaning all 3, the whole system, and is the only solution, which is right here. So that means that B is the correct answer choice. There is only one solution. However, there are 3 interceptions. That's why it is not D, and the answer choice is in fact B. Okay. Moving on to the next one. Again, 1 minute and 10 seconds. Begins. All right, and that was time. Currently have one answer being D, another D, and we have C. Okay, so for this question, what it's asking is essentially to just rewrite it. You have two terms. If you think about it, you have these 2 terms, right? And then just 5. And what you want to do is to give it into one fraction, one big mixed fraction, I would say. So the easiest way to do it is to just look at the 5 and rewrite it by the denominator on the first term, which is 2x plus 1. Again, 2x plus 1 over 2x plus 1 is just 1 because it's 1 over the same thing. So then you have the new equation, which is 2x plus 1 plus 10x plus 5 over the same denominator, which means you can combine them. Keeping in mind that you don't want to forget about this 1, you're adding it together, not multiplying it. So you're going to get 10x plus 6 over 2x plus 1, which is D. And then for C, yeah, it's just as simple as maybe you forgot about that 1, because the difference between answer choice C and D, if you notice, is just that 5 versus 6. But because it is addition, you are adding that 1. Don't forget about that 1. It does, if it was a multiplication problem and you're multiplying, then yeah, 1 times 10x plus 5 is just the same thing, but it's not multiplication. In this case, you are adding. So
actually, I mean, I know this is the right way to do it. By all means, try to do it this way because that's the right way. But I remember a cheat that actually I don't know would teach me. But another way is, I mean, if you see, it says the expression above is valid for x greater than 0. So what I would do when I would like freak out because of the time like I would give X the value of 1 because I knew that was possible, like that was valid because the sentence says that, and it would give me like a number, right? Because I don't have an unknown thing anymore. So in this case, it gives 13 sextos, yeah, like I think so. No, 16 thirds, yeah. And I would like fill out one in the others, and the one that gave me exactly the same, that's like an equivalent. I don't know if it makes sense. Like I know it can be a little bit more complicated, but for me it worked out when I was like freaking out.
I know I definitely would have done the same, because as soon as I see like if X is greater than 1, I immediately am like, okay, I agree, X is greater than 0. I either plug in 1, 2, or 5. Those were like always my go-to, because like inevitably like one of them is going to be like an ugly number. Like if I would have done 1 and I would have seen like also I'm doing fractions, I'd be like, we're doing 2 next. So like I definitely agree there in terms of like sometimes something as simple as that like will be super helpful, like with the plug and chug we were talking about earlier, like the example I showed earlier of like plugging in the different answers. Like sometimes it just like helps, instead of like if you're like panicking, you're like, I can't remember how to do this, and like plugging numbers in, like the math won't lie to you. So if you're like pressed for time or you're like just confused, like just remember like plugging answers in, like it may not give you the exact right answer, but it might help you eliminate some of the options.
Yeah. Everyone does it differently. That's kind of the tricky part of the SAT, is that both of the methods work. Personally, I did it like this. However, that's another method that's also get you the right answer anyways. So yeah, funsies. All right, moving on to the next question. Again, as I've been reiterating, 1 minute and 10 seconds. Minute and 10 seconds have passed. We currently have one answer, 360 centimeters cubed. Love to see the labels, the units.
I'm so embarrassed. I tried doing this question. I was like, oh, it's just like a simple volume formula. And then I multiplied 4 and 9 incorrectly.
It happens to the best of us.
I have 3 brain cells and none of them were working on the SAT math problem in front of me.
This would be all no calculator. All of these are taken from the no calculator section. So sometimes your brain just forgets what 4 times 9 is. Yep, 360 centimeters cubed. Good job. Cubic centimeters, that is correct, because it's just going to be a rectangular prism, right rectangular prism. All you have to do is multiply the 3 things together. So yep, 4 times 9, 36, 36 times 10, 360. Good job. Right. Number 19. Okay, and that was time. You want to start typing in your answers. Maybe my voice will come back. All right, we're getting 3/4. Another free response, another 3/4. Yep. Four thirds.
I've decided to participate yet again. If I did it wrong, happens.
Right. So we have 3/4 and 4/3. I can confirm that the numbers in the answer choice are 4 and 3. However, is it 3/4 or 4/3? And I am here to say that the answer, let me double check before I say something incorrect. I have double checked. The answer is in fact 3/4. I apologize, Alexis.
It's okay.
This one is one of my favorite types of questions, even though I absolutely despise math. There are a few things about it that just make me light up with joy. This is one of them, because if you see the 4 and the 5, then, you know, you can assign Sohcahtoa opposite. Oh, that's a highlighter. Opposite over hypotenuse. You can draw your little triangle. That was a terrible triangle. Pretend it's to scale. So your hypotenuse is 5. Your opposite is 4. So then what do you have here? You have, I think, a 3, 4, 5 triangle, if I'm not mistaken. My happy heart is correct. 3, 4, 5.
It is a 3, 4, 5 triangle, but if you're like me and you forgot the value, like the quick ones, you can just do a squared plus b squared equals c squared, which is what I did.
Y'all are smarter. But yeah, it's 3/4. It's 3/4. I'll read you the official response. By definition of sign ratio, this is more of a refresher for me. Since sine r is equal to 4/5, PQ over PR is 4/5. Therefore, PQ equals 4n and PR is equal to 5n, where n is a positive constant. This is a whole paragraph just for this question, and these are one of the shorter paragraphs. Sometimes it gives you a whole essay for these questions. And then you have to solve it, so you're going to get 3/4. Just gives you the question in terms of, how do I say that? Words. Instead of like bullet point, it writes it all out. But
I just have a question because I connected late. Did you, at the beginning of the session, said what Sohcahtoa means?
Oh no, I've been saying Sohcahtoa.
Yeah, because I know Sohcahtoa because like I learned it like in English pages, but in Mexico we don't use that. So that's a good that's a good tool that you guys should learn.
Yeah, I didn't realize. Okay, I've been saying Sohcahtoa. Let me quickly go over what that means. So I apologize. Right? Am I saying it right?
Sohcahtoa.
Yeah.
Sohcahtoa.
Sohcahtoa. The way I say it, it sounds like a Sohcahtoa. So this is for all of your trigonometry questions. So you're gonna look at the important part of this, and this has been engraved in me. So this means sine, this is cosine, and this is tan. So what you have is then for each of the trigonometric properties, you then have where it corresponds in the triangle. So if I draw this triangle again, and if I use my 3, 4, 5 triangle, which I love dearly, but had betrayed me today, you have 5, 3, and 4. Just ignoring the question, we're just looking at Sohcahtoa. For this, you have sine, so then it's going to be opposite over hypotenuse. I don't know how to spell. And then for cosine, it's not going to be opposite. It's going to be adjacent. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Finally, you have tan, which is going to be opposite over adjacent. Obviously, y'all probably already knew what sine, cosine, and tan are. That should be relatively simple. However, what we learn in America, in the United States, which I was not aware was international, is Sohcahtoa, which is just an acronym that is drilled into your little brain in like freshman year of high school, or maybe sophomore year.
I learned it in my last year of high school, and I use it even now. Like it stayed with me. So
I learned it in
definitely
8th grade.
Sohcahtoa.
So at some point in the American school math curriculum, this is drilled into your brain, and you will never forget it.
I even wrote it on the little notes I'm trying to do on my iPad. I wrote Sohcahtoa because it's just been drilled in my head.
Like I wrote down like
So
I used.
Also, and this iPad's so bright. This question's a really good point in like reading a question. So like obviously, since I'm not taking the SAT anytime soon, my reading comprehension is a little rusty. So as you saw, I got 4/3, and I was like, I mean, also I didn't try that hard, but I was like, everyone else is getting 3/4. That's why it's key to recognize it in the question. They said sine R, and you're finding the value for tan P. So make sure you keep an eye on like what part you're actually looking for. So something to keep in mind. My little old lady eyes were not prepared for the question.
Yeah. But Sohcahtoa is worth memorizing because that will not be on the SAT formula. So Sohcahtoa will save your life or trip up your life, but for the most part, it should save your life. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure SAT doesn't test on like the inverses, right? I think that's too far ahead.
They don't care. They just see the answers.
Yeah, okay. Sohcahtoa, everyone.
Yeah.
If you need a better written one, I will rewrite it. But if you want to like screenshot it or write it down or look it up, as long as you remember the Sohcahtoa part, Sohcahtoa, you're golden.
You can even Google it. Like it's not like classified information. It's just that we don't need to go.
I look it up like right now really quickly. Like it's in my Google search history. I've looked it up before because I forget it. So yeah. We only have 9 minutes left. Let me look at these questions and see. Ooh, no, this one's actually pretty easy, but we'll do it for the sake of, can you do it in under a minute and 10 seconds? Time starting now.
Yeah, actually at the end, I would like to tell them a few things that I think are key in this part. So when we finish this one, I might steal the mic for a sec.
I'm gonna leave my mic on so you can hear the alarm and what I get subject to every time a question comes up. Oh my goodness, look at that. All A's. All A's. And you still have 23 seconds left. Oh, look at that. Look at y'all. Don't need to do that. But yes, the correct answer is A. Pretty simple. You have a 9, you have an x squared. Both of those can be with the square root. Wow. Then you have 3x as your answer. So good job. Okay,
honestly, those extra 20 seconds that I saved on this question, I could have used to read the question correctly on the last one.
Exactly. That's how it works. As you can see, I will let time for Debbie to talk, but as you can see, there are more questions that are available that we did not do. So if you do want this presentation emailed to you, to do the rest of the questions or to redo questions you got wrong, you are encouraged to send me or send Alexis an email, and we will send you a copy of this presentation. And then if you then want to send us your answer to the problems, go ahead. Keep in mind, some of these do repeat in terms of the number. So like, for example, like I think there's like a 12 here. I'm pretty sure because I took from both the SAT practice test, number 9 and number 10. No, never mind. There's not a 12, but sometimes numbers may repeat. So maybe also like write down what the question is if you want to send us the answer choices. If not, we can figure out the answer choices. It's fine. But yeah, let me find the last slide. As you can see, there was, okay. It was like, I think 5 to 8 questions we didn't do. But yeah, here we are.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah, okay, so guys, if I haven't been clear, I live in Mexico, I study in Mexico, and all in Mexico. So I do get you guys being like raised under the Mexican kind of structure and trying to do the SAT. Even though I think most of you like have been in schools, like private schools, that they do focus on these kind of exams. And again, we are like under the same kind of school education. So I think there's like certain things that I would have liked to know in my time when I was practicing for the SAT that I didn't know or I didn't stress enough, and definitely like they didn't help me in my SAT. So okay, so first of all, you do need to learn how to manage your time. So again, I told you this the last time and I will tell you again, and it's like a 2-part tip, and it is to do practice exams, like full exams, so you can learn how to manage your time. I mean, also I think Marcela and Alexis already talked to you about this, but if not, you can Google it, because we do have like little recess between the sections. So like Google that and do all over the times that they will give you on the SAT. All that will really, really help you, because you're not the same with like 1 minute and 10 seconds per question as 3 hours for the full exam. You are not the same under pressure. So really don't trust yourself in this part. I don't know. Tiene más sentido en español, no se confíen. Really, don't do it, because I mean, it's really a complicated exam. It is really important that you practice. Really, really, really practice. Also, like in this part of calculation, of no calculator, I don't know you, but when I was in high school, like I didn't care at all in a lot of things, and I would use my calculator for everything. Throw your calculator away. Like, you need to practice. I don't care if you know how to multiply, you need to prove it to yourself. So if you do all your easy multiplications in calculator right now, stop doing it, because that will slow you on the SAT. So you need to do mental calculations fast enough. So that's also another important thing. And this is actually a tip that the interns of Chicago told me when I was like, it was not Marcela and Alexis, it was another guy that were when I was in your position. And this is a really important tip. The SAT don't care if you know math. They don't care if you know how to read or anything. They care that you know how to answer the exam. So you might not be the brightest in math, you might not be the brightest in reading. They don't care. Like, they really don't care. And the exam won't even tell you that. Like, I will tell you, I'm really good at math. I sucked at math at the SAT. So the exam, as all exams, they want to tell you if you're smart or not. What the exam wants is that you know how to answer the exam. So don't practice with another things. Don't practice with things that they gave you in high school for your subjects. They won't work. You need to know how to answer this particular exam, because the exam is designed for that. So don't stress in doing other things. Just learn how to do this exam. That will give you a good score. And another thing, I don't know if you're like me, like bilingual, when I speak in English, I think in English, okay? So when I speak Spanish, I think in Spanish. When I was doing the SAT, like I was trying to like do the math section. I mean, for example, the reading and writing, I did think in English, and it was easy because I knew the rules in that way. But in the math section, don't stress your, I mean, if you do this, because I did. So don't stress your mind trying to solve it in English. I don't know if it makes sense, but think math in Spanish. You've been doing math in Spanish your whole life. Your brain knows how to do math in Spanish. So, I mean, you will read it, you will get it in English because that's how it is paraphrased, even more if it's like a problem of, if Juanita has something, shala, I mean, you will catch it up like in English, but don't be like, oh, 3 times 4, because, I mean, unless you've been your whole life doing math in English, props to you, do it your way. But if you all the time think like 3 por 4 igual a 12, I mean, it will slow you if you are like, oh, 3 times, because you don't work that way. Your brain won't work that way. It won't magically do it the day of the exam. So again, like you're Mexican, embrace that and use your strengths in your favor. Do not try to pressure yourself at doing it like the Americans. We won't do it like the Americans. I mean, we can take like, again, I use Sohcahtoa now because it's a good tool, but you don't try to pretend to be American. You're not American, you're Mexican, you've been raised your whole life under the Mexican system, make that work. So those are like tips that I would have liked to listen when I was doing the SAT, because I mean, they really do work. I think that would have helped me. So again, and I will repeat the main one, practice, practice, practice. You will never have enough practice. So yeah, those are my tips.
I would have to agree with like all of them. They're really good tips, especially as you are in Mexico, coming from someone who was raised with the Mexican curriculum and not just the United States curriculum. Okay, quickly for next week, we are going over the calculator section, but I quickly also want to kind of elaborate on what David was talking about, and I'm going to share my screen, but this time different, and what I was talking about again. So practice exams, very important. Please do them. Do as many as you can. I'm going to stress that out. Even if you decide to take another exam like the ACT, you have to practice exams. The first thing is when you're doing SAT, go onto the College Board website. There are about 10 exams, or maybe 7, that are official from the SAT. We get our questions from these. You don't want to get like Barron's or Princeton Review or Kaplan, other companies that will sell you these test books and will make their own practice exams. They're not really useful to you, and they're not what you should be using. You should be using official practice exams or previous exams from the SAT that are official from the company. They make them, they know what they're doing. That's what's going to be asked. Because you could use like Kaplan or Barron's or Princeton. They're not bad resources, but when they make their own questions, they're their own company. They're not the College Board. So 2 different companies, and you want to focus on the official one. And I kept mentioning the SAT student guide, another resource I used for the presentations. Again, it's the official study guide from the company. It's from the website. You quickly click on it and you have like the entire thing on how to take the exam. Again, from the SAT themselves, and it's free. Again, all you have to do is Google SAT student guide, and you should get the most recent one, second link.
Another thing that's really important about like these, like, for example, like Princeton Review, I remember when I was like around the SAT time, constantly getting their ads on like YouTube videos before videos. And like at the end of the day, they're trying to make a profit. They're not trying to help you ace the SAT. They're trying to make a profit. So like they'll like give you all these like super easy, they're like, here's a quick way to master the only way you're gonna master the SAT is if you practice taking the SAT. Like no amount of like, here's a quick trick, here's a math, like no video is gonna help you master the SAT if you've never even seen what the exams look like. Because I know I tried using that method. I'm like, oh, well, like, why like do practice exams? Like that's so boring. Like I'll just like learn the quick tricks and like remember them for the test. Which is like fine and all when you're like trying to like study, like, oh, it's nice to have tips, but at the end of the day, those 5 tips and tricks you learn in a 15-minute video are not going to prepare you for sitting down and taking a 3-hour-long exam. So like, because I know I did not study enough for the SAT. I barely touched I have the giant book. You guys have seen it. I've shown it to you guys so many times. This thing got so like I even put little like sticky notes in it. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna definitely study this every day, and I didn't. And like, don't spend $40 on a book you're never gonna touch. Like, there's so many resources online. So that's what we recommend. I'm giving this to my brother, and I'm gonna be like, I hope you do better on it than I did, because I did not follow my own advice. But you should follow my advice, because I'm trying to help y'all. I don't get paid if you get ACS or T or not. I'm doing this to help.
Yeah. And as someone, final thing, because this is already 4 minutes, as someone who has seen like the super prestigious like test prep companies that there are, like at least in Houston, I managed to get some sessions for free because my school was very generous enough for that. You know what they do all day? They just take exams all day. There are no special tips and tricks at these prestigious, like, parents pay in the United States hundreds of dollars, I kid you not, to send their students to these like test prep places. And do you know what they do all day? They just take exams all day and grade them. They literally have like walls of exams from like 2010, 2007, and that's all they do. So when we say take practice exams and take them with the pressure, so meaning the time limit, and don't take all day, take the 20 minutes you only have in the actual exam, it's because we mean it. And we know that that's what works and what people are paying literally hundreds of dollars in the United States. So
yeah, so I mean, again, I think most of you study in private schools, but I don't know if any of you got to do COMIPAMs or anything like that, or no CONAMAT. Like CONAMAT's basically that. I mean, for here in Mexico, we don't study for the SAT. We don't have that kind of resource. But yeah, that's all you do. Like, I took a course for the COMIPAMs, and that's what I did every week. I took a test. So yeah, practice, practice, practice. And also, again, I mean, we don't have resources like in the United States, because, I mean, if you know it, like, we don't have, there's not much people trying to go to United States. So there's not like people dedicated to do that. So if you can find more practice tests, do them. Again, the best ones are by College Board, because as Marcela said, they are from the people that will test you. So that's the best. But I mean, if you get your hands in exercises or another thing for the SAT, yeah, they will work. Not as great, but they will work. So practice, like really practice.
So sorry if that was excessive, but we really want y'all to do very well on these exams.
Again, like in Mexican words, no se confíen para nada. O sea, de verdad, no se confíen.
Yep. As I said before, but as we end this, I'll say it again. We'll be going over the calculator section next time. More math. Yay. So hopefully we'll see y'all there. This time have a calculator. If I don't know, do people in Mexico use Texas Instruments?
No, not at
Okay.
all. But you should, I mean, it's not the end of the world if you don't have it.
Yeah.
I got one for the exam, but I mean, don't freak out if you don't have one.
Don't worry.
I use them, but in integrated circuits. I didn't know they make calculators.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, again, in Mexico, our great calculators is this. Like, it's not that like huge, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the Americans.
I'll talk about calculators next time. Don't you worry.
So yeah, I mean, if you know someone, get lent from it. I mean, I didn't buy one. I got one like shirt for that time. So yeah, don't spend your money in that. It's a lot. I mean, unless you're going to be an engineer, you will need one. If you're not going to be an engineer, nah, for nothing. So yeah.
That is all. After our little rant, that is all. Hopefully we'll see y'all next week. Yep.
Yeah, it's
How
like,
much are those calculators, like approximately?
oh,
Do a quick Google right now.
I
But
would
I know the one
say like,
I
because they're about like what? If they're $100 USD, that's like, is that 2,000 Mexican pesos?
yeah, like,
Yeah, that's about,
no, like 3,000
oh,
ish.
3,000. Oh,
yeah, I know because I literally just looked up right now, like Texas Instrument TI-84. That's the one I use, and that's like,
yeah.
I feel like that's the most like intense one that you're allowed to use. Like that's not like an Inspire where you're like straight up not allowed to use them. And it's like about $100 on like Walmart and Target, but you can like get them for cheaper on like eBay or Amazon. So like
Also
honestly,
used. Get them
yeah,
used.
used
They're
to.
calculators. You don't need them new.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
big thing is that like also like get a calculator that you can use again and again. Cause like I use my TI-84 from sophomore year in high school all the way to freshman year in college. So like get a calculator that you like can use if you're gonna be like buying one. Like don't get one just so you can take the SAT. That's it's a little much for the SAT. College board does not deserve you giving them, not even giving them that too much money, spending money to use on them.
Yeah, so actually you can go to the centro or like, I mean, I know people that study engineering, so maybe if you send me like an email, like I can help you get one. Let me think, what is my email? Yeah. So
Well, I wasn't thinking buying it for the SAT. I think this one does very well for that, but I'd like to study engineering, so yeah, that might be
yeah, you will need it. Like
Yeah, it'll
totally
be a good
go to the centro.
investment.
Yeah, but yeah, again, yeah, la más barata 2,500. Sara.
Sorry, I'm continuing to look online to see how much. Also don't get scammed because this one website's selling it for 2,000 American dollars, and like you can get it at Target. Like if you can get something at Target for like $100-ish, don't pay $2,000 for it online.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. We'll see
Yeah.
you guys next week. We'll be going over the calculator section with a little more practice questions. Thank y'all.
Thank you.